All right, so we're going to get started. We'll continue to admit attendees as they come in, but thank you very much for joining. My name is Nicole Patras. I'm a program officer with the Arnold and Mabel Beckman Foundation. Today, we're going to be reviewing the Beckman Young Investigator Program details specific to the 2024 program. Also on the phone with me today, I have two colleagues, Carrie Ray, she's a senior program officer, and Esther Devaney, she's a program administrator. They'll be helping me at the end of the call with the Q&A. So all participants are muted upon entry, and we ask that you please enter questions using the Q&A feature. We will try to get to as many, or if not all of them, at the end of the presentation. If there are any unanswered questions, please feel free to email me. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. The email's at the bottom of the screen. And we do ask that we keep these questions not extremely specific. So if you have a question that is specific to your eligibility, it'd be best to just email me separately and we can discuss outside of the call. So lastly, the presentation is being recorded. It'll be available on our website in about a week or so. So let's get started. Just to give a brief agenda, what we plan on covering today, we'll be going over the Beckman Young Investigator Program, the Foundation's Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion. We have some program guidelines and eligibility. We'll be reviewing the process timeline, the letter of intent, including how to apply, and some specific details about the application, the full application, the interview, and then we'll end with the Q&A. So the Beckman Young Investigator Program was created in 1991, and since its inception, we've awarded over $118 million to 390 early career awardees, which will soon to be a few more when we announce our 2023 awardees in the next few weeks. The program is intended to support the most promising young faculty members in the early stages of their academic careers in the chemical and life sciences, broadly interpreted, but particularly to foster the invention of methods, instruments, and materials that will open up new avenues of research and science. This is what sets the BYI program apart from some other early career awards. Since 1991, we've had a number of notable awardees, including 2 Nobel laureates, members of the National Academy of Sciences, institute directors, and hundreds of professors across the US conducting really innovative research. So the foundation incorporates justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion into each of its programs from the beginning of the application process to award. So specific to the BYI program, this begins with institutional outreach to organizations that have not yet received a BYI or perhaps have never even submitted an application. We are really intentional with recruiting diverse reviewers across multidisciplinary scientific backgrounds, as well as different institutional Carnegie classification levels, of course, keeping in mind gender and race balance. And most importantly, we conduct the letter of intent blind. I'll go into that a little bit more, but we've been doing this for roughly, this will be our 4th year, and we've been seeing some really great data to show that this process is working. So we're really excited about that. So moving into program guidelines. So some important takeaways from the program guidelines is that this program has an emphasis on innovation, high risk, and scientific advancement. Applications should not be a continuation of current work or the next logical step. The program seeks to fund scientists who do not yet have any major funding, and we provide $150,000 annually in support for up to 4 years. The $150,000 is directed to the PI. We do not allow for any overhead or indirect costs, so that money is going directly to funding your research. Moving on to program eligibility. So again, this is specific to the 2024 program. These eligibility guidelines don't typically change annually, but it's best to double check the website before you begin an application just to make sure there haven't been any changes. So for the 2024 program, we will accept applications from early tenure track professors. That's within the first 4 years. We are looking specifically for tenure track professors. At this time, we typically will only allow applicants with titles such as assistant professor. If you're in an institution in which does not offer tenure track and offers something equivalent, more than likely that would mean that you would still be eligible. So that would be an example in which you can reach out to me to confirm. Applicants must be United States citizens or permanent residents by the time of the interview. So this means that if you are in the process of obtaining permanent residency, perhaps you have an application out, you have not yet heard back, you are allowed to submit a letter of intent, and you would be eligible, assuming you meet the other eligibility criteria. But by the time of the interview, so roughly late March 2024, we would be following up with you to see where you are in that process, and you would need to be a permanent resident prior to the interview in order to advance. So the program allows for up to $225,000 in external annualized direct funding. This means that we do not count internal awards, we do not count instrumentation grants, we do not count any transitional awards, typically something that you would have received as a postdoc. We are looking to receive, or we are looking for the dollar amount that is specific to your lab. So if you're a co-I or a co-PI, we want to know how much money you're receiving from that award to get the up to $225,000. The foundation does not support clinical research, clinical trials, and single target drug discoveries. Typically, government laboratories are not eligible to apply. Applicants can apply a maximum of 2 program cycles, and this does include submitting a letter of intent. And applicants must have no more than 10 years post-terminal degree, which for 2024 would mean you could receive your post-terminal degree in any month in 2013, and no more than 5 years experience in a non-tenure track or industry position, but this does not include your postdoc position. So a process timeline for the BYI program, the letter of intent will typically open in early June, and it is always due in early August. This year it is due August 1st, which is a Tuesday. That is an open call invitation. Anyone who is interested and eligible is welcome to submit a letter of intent. The second half of the program is invitation only. So we will be inviting a specific number of applicants to submit a full application. Typically, those notifications go out in November, and the application is due in January. And then we'll be inviting a certain number of applicants to the interview. We'll notify you in early April, and the interview is in late April. It is conducted virtually. So letter of intent, how to apply. On the foundation website, if you go to the Beckman Young Investigator Program tab, there is a blue box that will show you the opening date and the deadline for the upcoming program, and an Apply Now button. That button will take you to our application website called SurveyMonkey Apply. And from there, you can create an application. It won't actually open until June 5th when the application opens. There is, unfortunately, no way to look at the application without creating an account, but you are welcome to do so. You're welcome to create an account, especially administrators, grants officers. You're welcome to create an account and check out all the pieces of it, and obviously have no intention of submitting. That's fine with the foundation. So LOI pre-proposals will be reviewed to determine whether they'll be invited to submit a full application. So we'll go into that in the next few slides. So details about the letter of intent. The application requires a few items, the first and most important being the 4-page technical pre-proposal. This is inclusive of images and citations. We have a template for a biosketch, a template for a research support form, and then we require 2 institutional endorsements. The institutional endorsements are typically from the chief academic officer or dean, but the foundation will allow anyone who has the ability to sign on their behalf to sign for those without approval by the foundation. So most important about the letter of intent will be the blue box on the right-hand side. So it is conducted as a blind review. So reviewers are only provided access to the technical pre-proposal document. The other documentation items are reviewed internally just to confirm eligibility for the program. So some additional instructions about the blind review pre-proposal. It is extremely important that this document is written as anonymously as possible. So we do ask that you don't include your name, gender, any institutional information. You're encouraged but not required to write in the third person. We ask that you do not name any collaborators, mentors, postdoc advisors, lab members, etc. You can reference your own work. We just have a specific formatting for you to do so. So your name is not identifiable in the list of authors. And if you have unpublished work, we have a specific way that you can write that as well, which is in the last bullet. I would definitely recommend that you ask someone to proofread your proposal to confirm that it doesn't include any identifying information. If we find that these guidelines are not followed, we will unfortunately have to remove your application for consideration. Something that comes up a lot, some people are concerned that they have some published information that they feel like it would be easy to determine who they are. We understand that these things happen. As long as the guidelines are followed, we will continue to allow your application to go through. If a reviewer is able to determine who you are, we ask that that information is withheld from discussion. We will not allow any discussion to be had around who the applicant may potentially be. And they'll be told that as long as the guidelines are followed, your application is eligible to continue. So here are some pre-proposal writing tips that we like to share. We find that the most successful applications are really concise. They clearly identify their aims and goals, leaving reviewers wanting more. This is particularly important with the letter of intent because that's the only document that reviewers are reviewing. We ask that you speak to your audience. BYI reviewers are experts across a multidisciplinary range of scientific fields, but not necessarily your field. So just be careful with jargon and uncommon acronyms. Again, the letter of intent pre-proposal must remain anonymous. So please just make sure that it is written with that intention. And most importantly, we ask that you submit on time. We do have hundreds of these that are submitted, and occasionally the system gets a little bit overwhelmed in the last few minutes before the deadline. So please try to submit at least an hour in advance if possible. We have some additional letter of intent resources on our website. So these can be found on the BYI program tab under program overview. We have 2 examples of successful pre-proposals. These are really great because it gives you an opportunity to see not only a way that a successful pre-proposal was written, but also the type of science the foundation is looking to fund with the BYI program. We also have a guidance document to assist in the writing of the pre-proposal, which is another great document that was created by a member of our executive committee. And then new for the 2024 program, we'll be offering what we're calling mentor office hours. So these are brand new. The intention is that interested applicants can sign up to attend a quote unquote office hour that will be led by a BYI awardee alum. They will be specific to kind of going over the application and how to write your proposal and answer any questions that you might have. We do have the intention of offering this again for the full application, but this is the first year. So it will be a lot of trial and error, but we are excited to offer it this year to the incoming applicants. More information on that will be on the letter of intent itself when it opens next week. So moving into the letter of intent review process, we do recruit former awardees as well as other scientists with the rank of associate professor or higher from various academic institutions. Each review panel will consist of 3 reviewers per panel, and reviewers will select up to 100 applications to invite to submit a full application. So now we'll move on to the invitation portion of the Beckman Young Investigator Program. So you'll be notified by the foundation in early to mid-November if you are invited to submit a full application. You will need to maintain the $225,000 in annual direct external funding. So this means that if you received a major award or another award that would potentially kind of push you over the 225 in between submitting an LOI and a full application, you would be ineligible to continue. You're welcome to reach out to me to confirm, but those guidelines are pretty firm. So the materials that are prepared by an applicant for the full application include a 6-page pre-proposal. This is inclusive of images and citations, and it is no longer blinded. So you are welcome to say as much as you like about yourself when you're training at this point. We have some additional PI information that we request. These are short answer questions that will include an opportunity to describe any potential COVID impacts. We'd like to hear about your mentorship style in the lab, how you incorporate justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion in your lab, things like that, to kind of learn a little bit more about you and how you run the lab itself. We ask for a project timeline, as well as a budget for years 1 and 2, an updated bio sketch, and an updated research support form, and both of those have templates provided. We have some additional materials that are requested by the applicant, but not completed by the applicant. So I wanted to call these out specifically because it is important that you get these out as quickly as possible for signature. These tend to be the items that will hold up an application and potentially make it ineligible to continue if they're not complete. So I certainly recommend that as soon as you get the notification, you get these materials out for completion. So these include institutional support form. There's a template provided for that. The award terms acknowledgement, which will require some signatures from your institution. We like to be transparent with our award terms because the foundation does not allow for any edits to them should you be awarded. So we want the institutions to know upfront what you would need to be agreeing to should you receive the award. And then lastly, we have 2 letters of recommendation. So the first letter would come from a no association field expert. So this is somebody that you've never worked with, collaborated with, you've never been in the same institution with them. There's more details about this in the full application itself. And the second letter can be from an affiliated letter writer. So typically this would be, your postdoc advisor or someone that can speak to not only you as a person, but you as a scientist and your accomplishments. So applicants won't have access to these letters, but they will be notified by the system when they're submitted, so you know that they're complete. So the full application review process is somewhat similar in the sense that it is reviewed by a panel of 3 reviewers, but it is much more lengthy. So we have these applications reviewed electronically. Once the reviews are submitted, we have a day and a half of virtual review in which the applications are reviewed twice. And by day 2, the reviewers will select up to 16 applications to advance to the interview stage. So again, this is not blinded. Information about you will be made very well aware to the reviewers. So this is where they're really going to see, your background and if you're, quote unquote, the right one for the job. The last stage of the application process is the interview. You'll be notified if you are advancing to the interview in early April, and the interview is held virtually at the end of April. Finalists are tasked with creating a 5-minute presentation summarizing the aims of their proposal, and then the majority of the time will be spent with some Q&A and interview questions. The interview committee is typically composed of members of the Beckman Young Investigator Executive Committee. So again, it's conducted virtually via Zoom. and the committee is tasked with advancing roughly 10 applications for award consideration. So next steps, if awarded, you will be invited to attend the annual Beckman Symposium for the duration of the award. This is a really great, unique opportunity to interact with the awardees from all of our programs. So that will include Beckman Scholars, which are undergraduates, Beckman Postdoctoral Fellows, fellow BYIs, executive committee members, members of our Scientific Advisory Council and board, staff. It's a really unique opportunity to hear the research that's being conducted by the other awardees, because it will be very multidisciplinary and it will really give you an opportunity to sort of branch out and potentially make new collaborations. We will we'll distribute year one funding in the summer. And then we ask that annual reports are due to the foundation typically in June prior to the second year funding. Okay, so at this point, we'll move into the Q&A portion. Again, if you have any specific questions pertaining to eligibility or program fit, it would be best if you could email me separately outside of this call. I'm happy to work with you and answer your questions there. If there's any additional questions that are not answered, my phone number and email are up on the screen. But at this time, I will turn over to Esther to start reading off the Q&A, but please continue to add questions into the Q&A and we'll get through as many as we possibly can.
Nicole, we just have one question right now. Any restrictions on concurrent funding of similar research, be it federal or non-federal?
We do have some restrictions with concurrent funding. If you're speaking specifically to the aims, we do want to be the only funding mechanism supporting this specific research. So if there is a little bit of overlap, that is allowed. We don't unfortunately have like a specific percentage that I can provide you, but I would say ultimately it's best to keep in mind that we want to be the only funding mechanism that is funding these specific aims and guidelines that you put into your proposal. So if that's what you're referring to, I hope that answered your question, but if not, please feel free to type in another question.
That's the only question we have right now.
Okay, great. I'm going to open the chat and see if there's anything else. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to give just one more minute to see if there's any more questions that come in. But again, this will be recorded. It'll be posted online. I am very happy to answer questions outside of this, like I've mentioned several times. So you're always welcome to reach out if you have that. I think one just came through the chat. So let's see. Within the fields the foundation is interested in supporting, are there particular areas of interest? No, not specifically. We are unique in the sense that we are really open to the chemical and life sciences broadly interpreted. So we are really mostly concerned with the innovation of the proposal. We're concerned with the potential for new methods, instrumentation, materials. We're not concerned about the field. And we typically don't go in with an agenda as to what we're looking to fund. We are open and we will accept any applications that come in. And we basically just compare them against our eligibility criteria and pick the ones that we feel fit are the most Beckman-esque. That's what we're looking for each year.
One more question. Sure. If the projects are supposed to be a patently new direction, are preliminary data viewed negatively?
No, preliminary data is not required, but it is also not viewed negatively. So assuming that you have preliminary data, that means that obviously you've been working on it for a little bit, but as long as it's not a direct extension of current work or the next logical step, you're welcome to submit it. This is really an opportunity for you to take your research in a new direction. So absolutely not looked down upon if you have preliminary data, and it's not looked down upon if you don't have preliminary data. So it is pretty unique in that sense. There's another question in the chat. Who will submit the institution support form, award terms, and 2 letters of recommendation, and where are these forms located? So all of the forms are located within the application itself. Everything will be housed there. The applicant will be the one actually submitting. So they'll be requesting that these documents are signed via the application system. So once they're complete, they'll be notified that they're completed, and then you are required to go back in and basically hit submit yourself. So you'll be aware of where they stand. You'll be aware if they're outstanding. And then you're required to go back in and kind of close the loop and hit the submit button itself. I find sometimes that if a letter of recommendation writer is not moving as quickly as you'd like, or perhaps you're cutting it close to the too close to the deadline, you can rescind that letter and invite somebody else. So you have an opportunity to make that change and get someone else to sign it. But you're required to basically send these out. Anyone who signs your application will have access to it to a certain extent, but that's typically mostly as it comes to the full application itself.
Reference letters appear to be increasingly important in the prestige competition space. Same here. Question mark.
Reference letters are important, but the BYI program really looks at things as holistically as possible, and nothing has more weight than the other. So the reference letters are just a piece of the puzzle. I would say that they are important, just as important as the proposal itself, just as important as the other pieces. So we don't have a specific formula that they would potentially push an applicant over another, but they're important in the grand scheme of things, certainly.
Does NSF early career funding preclude a young PI from applying?
It really depends. I'd have to see the specifics of the award itself. The only thing that would make it so that you wouldn't be able to apply is if you have too much money. And obviously, if there's too much overlap with the proposal itself. But if you are still under the 225 and you have that award, then you are eligible to apply.
I think that's it for the questions.
Okay, great. And I have no more chat questions. So if that's the case, we will wrap up. And again, this will be posted on the website in the next week or so. You're welcome to reach out with more questions. But that's it. Thank you very, very much for attending, and I look forward to receiving your applications.